It's your boy, Smith Lockwood! America, we need to talk. And when I say America, I don't mean everybody in America. There are definitely some people that this does not apply to, but those of you that take the English language and ruin it with your crazy Americanisms, it needs to stop. And I'm not talking about those American English words that differ to our British English equivalents. I'm cool with that. I'm happy with fanny pack, I'm happy with band-aid, I'm even happy with sidewalk to some extent. But recently, on my trip to Florida, I got to witness this ruination firsthand by some of your general population, and we need to chat. I found a lot of these words, these Americanisms, as I was walking around Florida, but I'm not going to cover them all. I'm just going to deal with the 5 main culprits of this virus to our vocabulary. So here we go. Unfortunately, this first terrifyingly mind-numbing American nugget of ghastliness was already on my radar before I even visited America, but going back there, going across the pond, just reignited my hatred for it, and there was no way it was avoiding the list. Eatery. Sadly, we all know what an eatery is, but even its definition, even its very definition, defies its actual existence. An eatery is a restaurant or other commercial establishment serving food. Let's focus on that definition very quickly. A restaurant. A restaurant! Surely when the very first part of the definition is already the term for the thing that you are creating a word for, you don't need to create a new word. But let me rewind a moment. Let's try and defend eatery. Let's look at its etymology. Let's look at its origin. The eat morpheme is simple enough. We all understand that. But then somebody added the ERY suffix on the end, which makes the word mean something like relating to or associated with a certain occupation. Other examples of this are bakery and brewery. But eatery doesn't really fit in with those, because at a bakery, the bakers bake, so the word relates to their occupation, and at a brewery, the brewers brew, so that relates to their occupation as well. But at an eatery, the chefs do not eat. The cooks do not eat. Their occupation, their job, is not eating. And even if you want to choose to ignore that factor, I'm going to go back to my previous point. Why did we need the word eatery in the first place? Lexically speaking, we've pretty much got the food establishments covered already for any and all possibilities. If it's a fancy place with 3-course meals and a big menu, it's a restaurant. If it's a bit smaller and less fancy, it's a cafe. Just stopping for a drink and a cake? A tea room! Christ, would you even believe that snack bar predates eatery? Snack bar came before eatery. In conclusion, America, you've gone too far this time. No, no! You can't just add suffixes to the ends of words and fling them out into common usage. That is just criminal. Do not do it. And the problem with this is, when you start sticking ERY onto the end of words, other people see you doing that and think, I can do that too. And then they create something ludicrous. Like I saw bagelry smeared all across the Einstein Brothers bagel shop, and I'm thinking, no, you can't just bagelry, you can't just have bagelry. Thankfully, they haven't put that on their website, so maybe they've realised their mistake. Tasty bagels, distasteful abuse of the English language. Next! Yeah, I hadn't heard this either, until I was on the plane going to Orlando, and I heard a little exchange between an American mother and her young daughter, and she said, don't forget to pick up your coatie. And I kind of thought she was being cute. Cute in kind of the same way that you would tell your baby cousin to go get your shoesies on, or cute in the kind of way that you mount a little bit inside when you go into a shoe shop and you see the tiny little baby shoes and you pick them up and you say, look at the beautiful little baby booty. On second thoughts, never say look at the beautiful baby booty in public. In fact, don't say it, ever. Anyway, I brushed aside that use of coatie until I was at Universal Studios. I was in the queue to go on a roller coaster, and a fully grown American woman said to her fully grown American husband, you're going to need to fasten your coatie for this one. On returning to England, I investigated further. A coatie is a close-fitting short coat, especially one with tails or skirts. Apparently, coatie was formed in a similar way to goatee, and goatee means roughly either like a goat, because the tuft looks a little bit like a tufted goat's chin, or a small goat, which means you've got a sheep's cousin sort of splattered across your chin. So what does that mean in relation to coatie? I guess that means it's either like a coat or a small coat. which you may be thinking makes sense, except if it's like a coat or a small coat, you're probably talking about a jacket. You're probably talking about a jacket. And you know what's good about a jacket? It doesn't make you sound like you've damaged your brain or like your entire friendship group consists of 3-year-old girls. Coaty, grow up. Next. I'll put my hands up and say that I'm a wrestling fan, and as a result of that, I do hear a lot of American speaking on the commentary every week, and that's where I first came across this disgusting word. Part of me hoped that it was just part of the idiolect of one of the people on the commentary team, but then I went to Florida and I heard it at least 3 or 4 times being sprayed around like a cheap aerosol, and that means its stench is far more widespread than I could ever imagine, and my fragile little brain can't deal with that. So what is normalcy? Normalcy is an abstract noun, which means it's a thing but you can't touch it, it's not concrete, so it's like an idea or a quality or a state. And normalcy means the state of being normal. So you may be wondering, Adam, what's wrong with that? That sounds like something we'd need to be able to talk about, so we need a word for that. And you're right, it would be good to have a word like that. Oh wait, we already have a word like that we've been using for the last 300 years, and it is nowhere near as outrageously stupid as normalcy. For those of you that don't know, the standard term for that middle ground, natural, neither here nor there state of being is normality. You know, people normally use normality. Normal people will read words, remember them, and then not coin a brand new word to replace a word that already exists that sounds 3 or 4 times as stupid as the original word. And I'm not mad because normalcy doesn't make sense, because it kind of does. Adding a cy suffix to the end of words does often make an abstract noun. Things like democracy, or accuracy, or lunacy. They make sense. And the reason those ones make sense are because if we added the ity suffix instead, they'd be really hard to pronounce. We'd have things like democracy, and acrity, and bloody lunity, and it would be lunacy to change them when we already have the word normality. The worst part is that they even went as far as to create abnormalcy. Look at it! It doesn't even look right! Are we all in the Navy suddenly? Are we all on a boat? Are we sailors? Are we comparing a normalcy to an abnormalcy? No, because I'm not a sailor. And if I was, I would drag these 2 words onto the boat and I would sink the boat and they would drown. They would drown. I think the most terrifying aspect of normalcy was that it actually wasn't catching on as a term until the American president, Warren G. Harding, decided to include it as part of his 1920s campaign. He marched through his campaign using the slogan, "Return to normalcy." Next! It seems to be becoming worryingly commonplace that presidents are vomiting with our vernacular and swilling around in its mess. In late 2016, this frankly atrocious word that had almost been lost in obscurity, that was left behind in history, ended up trending worldwide thanks to the buffoonery of America's top buffoon, Donald Trump. Staying true to his surname, Donald farted this word, bigly, from his mouth during a debate with Hillary Clinton, and most of us didn't just trump at the use of this stupendously stupid word. We actually followed through. And it's not even like this was the only recorded use of the word bigly from the 45th President of the United States, because newspapers and reporters across the world have noticed him saying it several times. For months now, he has been pebble dashing his supporters with phrases like, "We're going to win bigly," "They're taking it over bigly," and, my favourite, "It was about to kick in really bigly." And when I say favourite, I mean set fire to my eardrums and beat me to death with a dictionary. Let me just put that into perspective. The President of the United States of America, one of the most powerful people in the entire world, has just resurrected this zombie, bigly, and is setting it on the world. And I would spend some time explaining to you all why the word bigly shouldn't exist or why it doesn't make sense, but quite frankly, I don't want to insult your intelligence, because I think a 2-year-old child whose second language is English would be able to recognise the filth of such a word. You can taste it in your mouth. Bigly. It's filth. It's filth. So, in his reign as president so far, Donald Trump has not only set back the Western world by a good few decades, he has set the English language back by a good few 100 years. Cheers, Donald. You've helped us all bigly. This final abhorrent Americanism that I want to protest is actually the youngest on the list, and I hope it dies in its infancy. I wouldn't call myself a fan of sports, but this ridiculous jargon term from the world of sport has leaked its way in to the general population and into the general vocabulary, and it has to be stopped. It has to be stopped! The word in question is winningist. Let that sink in. Winningist. 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 I don't even know where to begin with this one. Adding est onto the end of the majority of adjectives or describing words makes what we call a superlative adjective. A superlative adjective is a way of describing something as the very best in its field, or of the highest quality or the highest regard. Adjectives like funny and happy and dumb become funniest and happiest and dumbest, and that's fine. And then for adjectives that would sound clumsy with est on the end, like beautifulest and talentedest and underhandedest, we get rid of the est and we put most before it, and we end up with most beautiful, most talented, and most underhanded. Simple enough. So what this word, winningist, actually means is the one who wins the most, or the most successful. And therein lies the obvious solution to this ridiculous problem. Winningist does sound clunky, but if it means most successful, why not just say most successful team? Most successful is better, because A, it doesn't sound moronic, and B, it doesn't sound moronic. Saying that a team is the winningest team of all time makes you sound like the losingest idiot of all time. Winningist, you are the disgustingest, repulsivest, most god-awfulestest superlative that I've ever heard. You are the worstest. Off your pop. Thank you very much for letting me get that off my chest. All I really want is to bring some normalcy back to our language. Hopefully we can do that together. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I really hope you enjoyed it, but before you grab your coatie and head out to the eatery with your friends, I would appreciate it bigly if you could help make me the winningest YouTuber of all time by hitting that subscribe button, hitting that like button, and leaving me a comment. Today, let me know which of these Americanisms was your least favourite, and also, if there's any other Americanisms that you particularly dislike, leave those in the comments too. Love you guys.